To my right, I have Jimmy Tarr, alternate chair. At the far end, I have Doug Finn. To my left, John Jeffers and Lee Bell. And I have our administrative assistant for the last meeting, Ashton Weigel. Just want to take a moment to thank him for his time supporting the planning board. It's been very helpful, and wish you luck on bigger, better things. Any other comments from?
Thank you, Ash.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we also have virtually attending our assistant planner, Janelle Franklin. Would you like to say hello, Janelle, for the record that you're here?
On the record, I'd like to say hello.
I mean, if
She'll have
you're
her-
a board member and you attend virtually, you have to like physically actually say your name and do that virtually. So I figured might as well do the same thing for
I am present.
present.
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right. The first item on the agenda, as always, is public forum. This is opportunity for folks virtually or in person to speak to the board on anything that's not related to what's currently on the agenda. It's about bringing new news to the board. If anyone is here for that, speak now. Otherwise, we can close the public forum and move into a formal discussion, which is a public hearing. Generally, what happens in the public hearing, I read the hearing notice. At that point, the applicant will present to us, and then we hear comments from the public, supporters and opponents. Then we can ask questions of the applicant or some of the supporters of the opponents. Then the public hearing will be closed. The board deliberates, and then upon completion of deliberations, we will vote on it. So to start, to open the public hearing, I am going to read the public hearing notice. The Hatfield Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, March 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at Memorial Town Hall and by remote means via GoTo at, oh boy, https.
I think you can just say
Did I say that? Okay.
Yeah.
Via GoTo at the hyperlink or by telephone at 1-872-240-3412, access code 344-102-813, to consider a special permit and site plan review for applicant Omasta Landscaping. Application proposes construction of a construction industry and suppliers, including open storage of materials and equipment use in accordance with Table of Uses Section 3.0 and subsection 5.27 on tax parcels 211-32.1, 211-32, and 206-149, known as 137 North Hatfield Road. Application available to view in the town clerk's office. All right, and with that, the public hearing is open, and now it is the time for the applicant to come and speak to the project. However, it's our understanding, Greg, if you want to come just and explain what's going on.
So it's my understanding through Tom Reedy that somehow somebody. Hold on, I think that's turned on. Oh, okay. I pushed the button.
Just so we can hear you. The public can hear you. There we go.
So it's my understanding that somehow the town was not able to notify all the abutters. And evidently that was something to do with the zoning map or something to that effect. So Tom had reached out, I believe, to yourself to postpone this meeting till next month, same time, same place.
Right. So we decided to open the hearing so that there doesn't have to be another notice published. So we're going to vote tonight to continue the hearing so that we can hear the whole thing going at our next meeting, April
Correct.
3rd. Apologies for the hiccup with that.
Yeah, things happen. We're, disappointed. It just pushes us back another month.
Yep.
We have, once we hopefully get the good graces for the planning board, we want to move forward, and we've got a lot of work in front of us. We're nowhere near being able to put a shovel in the ground.
Mhm.
So it just pushes us back another month. So we're hoping that we'll be able to present next month.
Yes. And again, apologies on our side for that.
All around, apologies all around.
Yeah, no, no
Yep.
one's fault. Things happen.
Yep. And so now the butters will now be notified. That was the missing piece there. And so they are notified that to come to our next meeting, which will be April 3rd, I believe.
April 3rd.
Yes, April
That's what it
3rd at
says.
6 o'clock. That'll be continued.
So you need a motion to continue?
Yes.
Move to continue the public hearing to April 3rd, 6 PM.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The hearing will be continued to April 3rd at 6 o'clock. Well, 6:01 because we'll have public forum at 6 o'clock. So we'll see you. then.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. Now, for some other, next item on the agenda is our Hatfield design guidelines. So at our last meeting, thank you, Jimmy, for chairing that. We talked about them, see if there was any more public comment around them. It seems like they're in a spot where we could hopefully take a vote on them. And with that, then they would then be in effect and not just be floating letters and floating words in our zoning bylaws. They actually have a document behind them. Any discussion on this?
I'm full behind a motion to approve.
Yeah, all of my concerns have been assuaged.
Great. Can I-
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hatfield design guidelines are now on the books.
Great.
Just for clarity, they're on the books, but they're not going to apply to the application that we are receiving at this point. that we've already
Yeah,
received,
since
correct?
it's, they've requested a draft of them, but it's
Okay.
nothing that we're going to be, it'll be anything going forward. I agree.
Yeah.
That's where,
It seems only fair.
and thank you, Janelle, for helping get that over the finish line. And Ashton, too.
Yep, and that's something I think that either Ashton or Karen can help out. We can get that posted onto the website so people can review that there.
Yes.
The final version, we can change the formatting of the headings and stuff a little bit and get that out to people.
Great. Yeah, we want that online with right next to our bylaws and subdivision regulations and all those other quick links full of long documents. Okay. Moving on. The open space development bylaw discussion and vote. So we opened the public hearing last meeting to hear from the public about the open space development bylaw. There's a couple questions on it, but didn't seem like there was any.
I don't think there was much contention.
Right. So any further discussion on that? Otherwise, we can vote to approve to have that, move that to the town meeting warrant.
Make a motion, we approve open space development bylaws till the town meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That'll all go to town meeting then. And between now and then, we can work on a one-pager for town meeting to provide to folks.
Yeah,
Janelle, do you have an update on that?
I was gonna add, I think the one question that still might be unresolved for people is understanding like how this might have the nearest effect on different parcels in town, and maybe making providing some sort of visual for people
Mhm.
to understand that better.
Yeah, so if we could have a draft at our next meeting, that would be great. So then we can get feedback on it to then have for May. I mean, I guess we can even wait till May because there's a couple weeks before that, but
Be nice to get it done
I can
tomorrow.
definitely have a one page or like pamphlet kind of draft for next meeting, and then we can make some edits for it and have
Polish it from there.
yeah,
Right.
polish it from there. Yeah. And I think like the biggest thing that like, hopefully I don't want like, we already have something on the books is like the main piece of this. Hopefully it's not going to be like, this is a new thing, like, and make people,
Freak out?
yeah. It's
It's a bottom line.
It's really just a tweak of what
Uh-huh.
we are currently
Yep.
have on the books.
Yep.
All right. The next item on the agenda is discussing our potential bylaw amendment for the detached accessory dwelling unit. Janelle, do you have an update on that?
Well, so before we get too into it, I was wondering if Ashton, is there any chance that we have a estimate of what is left in
Yes.
our funding as the planning board for posting? Because that's kind of the biggest.
Yeah, so there's
piece of
these,
this.
just so for context, we have Doug put together a draft, excuse me, yeah. If you're going to speak, can you, the cameras or the mics are picking up on some of the feedback, so sorry, it's okay. Look at, yeah, if you want to. Thank you, sorry. So Doug put together an accessory dwelling unit detached, accessory dwelling unit zoning bylaw. And it was reviewed at our last previous meetings, really. And there's kind of a question of if we can get it on the town meeting warrant. Timeline wise, it looks like we can, but it will be tight. And the only thing that would probably make us not meet that deadline is if for whatever reason we post the public hearing next month, and there's a ton of contention, or like there's a lot of interest in pushback or critique on what we're presenting, and then we would have to kind of bring it back to the drawing board, tweak it, and it wouldn't be ready for us to then, if we had to vote on it at our May meeting, it would be too late. So we would have to be ready to like have the hearing, workshop the stuff, and vote on it at the next meeting, which we can do, but we just take that risk. And the risk is that it costs money to post these public hearing notices. It's like on the town if we want to change our bylaws to pay for the notice. And it's like $800-900 to post something in the Gazette.
Really?
It's because you have to do it 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
It's about the number of words.
Wow.
On average, it's around that. And so we are come up in our budget. We've hit all of our max budget for these legal fee postings. These postings, we have like $1,500 allocated in our budget. We already blew through that. And so we had to reallocate funds in order to pay for our last open space development law bylaw. Anyway, we have about $3,000 that we can account for that. So it looks like plus we have about, if we take out what we have to currently pay, we have about $2,500 in our budget. So we could pay for another posting.
When do we get refunded?
Replenished
Yes.
at the
July
next
1st.
fiscal year, July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can
So
I ask a couple questions before
Yep.
we proceed? Does anyone have any information as to whether or not the current accessory apartment bylaw has been implemented? In other words, has anybody recently taken advantage of that? Is there a history of that being used?
There is.
It was one, right, Steph?
There's one.
Yeah, it
There's one on Prospect.
Building told us.
as of like 5-ish months ago when we asked, it was only one.
Only one.
And we had it on the book since 2019.
Okay. I would suggest, and you know, I like the idea. I'd like the idea of pushing forward. I personally don't think there's a difference between whether or not an ADU is attached or detached on a residential lot, all else being equal. That being said, if there's any concerns or questions on this board level, I don't think it should proceed until those concerns are addressed. If this board says, yes, we're in favor, we like the language, we have no problem implementing it, then let's go to the public hearing. You spend a
Bang it
little
out.
bit of money on advertising. If you get a lot of pushback from the public at the public hearing, even if it's a warrant article, you stand up at the town meeting and say, I request no action on this warrant article.
Mhm.
Request it to be passed over, no harm, no foul.
Mhm.
But if you have the public hearing and you get a lot of positive feedback and say, yes, this is good, then you go to town meeting more confident in the proposal.
Just to be clear, it doesn't cost anything to have the public hearing. It just
It
pushes our
It does.
time.
That's the-
Oh, I see.
That's
Okay.
the
All
budget.
right.
We got to limit these
So then,
Yeah.
yeah.
posts.
And that's why I would say that you don't move forward with the ad or the public hearing unless this board is confident in it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So,
Well, where do we stand in this board on how we feel about this?
I'm positive.
I'm positive too. I mean, I have an Airbnb at my house, so
Yeah, I'm for it. And again, I think that I'm just concerned with pushback from the town.
Right.
You know, the
That's the
static
next problem.
static quo.
That's
for,
the next
you know,
problem. We got to get through this problem.
I've never
That's the
heard that
next
term
one.
before, but I really like it. Static quote.
I think I just made it up.
We're patenting it.
Yeah, and then you just end up paying for the legal notices twice, right? Like, let's say we don't pass it now because there's a lot, and then we workshop it, and then we'll do it again at the end next year. Is that,
It's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we have, hopefully we get budget requests for the more legal fees for next year because the posting fees, the Gazette, gone up.
Yeah.
I'm in support of detached ADUs. I also know it's going to come out as a recommendation in our comprehensive plan that is wrapping up and will be presented sometime later this year to us. And so if we could get one leg up in passing some of these things, like the open space development bylaws, another one that we're going to be up, then we can move on to other ones and help, get the next item checked off the list for the comprehensive plan. So it's not like we are deciding that this is a priority too, like jump between the board, like this is what our comprehensive plan is also, that committee, which is represented of almost every single board and committee in town, is also recommending detached ADUs. So I feel confident in us pushing it forward. I just do have the question, and just also kind of a little bit being the fiscally responsible piece of, like, if we did have to just pull it down because there's whatever, having to pay for it again because we were trying to rush it.
I don't see where there'd be a whole lot of pushback, if you want to know the truth. When I did my house, it's a long time ago, but when I did my house with an in-law apartment on it, the only pushback was from Stanley Mazurowski. And
Was that an abutter?
personal. No,
Oh.
he was the building inspector.
Oh,
He was the building inspector, and it was personal with him. He didn't want me to be able to do that. And I ended up having to go to, because my brother-in-law is a quadriplegic, I went to Stavros, who stepped in and said to the building inspector, we will sue you if you don't do this. So we drew up a special permit legalized by both the town council and my attorney, saying that I will never try to sell my house as a two-family house. That was the only restriction that he could put on that.
wow.
And since then, I've encouraged other people. I mean, the McGlues had one and it got too complicated for them. There's one now on Prospect Street, the big horse farm, I think, put up between me and Lee's house on the other side, put up a fancy 2-bedroom Airbnb there.
So yeah, the idea too is like, yeah. So and yours is attached.
I have
Anyway.
a question. Can I ask questions?
What? Yeah.
Well, it's pertaining to you, sir. So when you threatened to sue,
I didn't,
they
Rob,
bent a knee and they gave you your will?
no, I didn't threaten to sue them. Stavros, the handicap agency in Amherst, threatened to sue them for me.
So they did it in your favor?
They did it because what the building inspector was saying was incorrect.
Right. So what I'm curious about is, back during the last annual town meeting when there was a vote, was it your incompetence or intentional, let's see, what's what I'm looking for? Incompetence, or you intentionally screwed over Articles 15, 16, and 17? It was your intention
Excuse me.
to violate our rights.
Excuse me, sir. If there's something you'd like to address to the board, can you wait till we get through this item?
I think I've said my piece. I think what you did was intentional to sabotage Articles 15, 16, and 17.
Excuse me, can you please?
Just like today.
Order, please.
Was it incompetence, or did you intentionally?
Mr. Brusco, you will follow the order.
People to be here for.
Mr. Brusco, you shall follow the order of the meeting, or you will not be heard, or you shall not be
I am
heard.
done because, as
We are
Mr.
not.
Tarr speculated that.
We're not talking about this part. We're not talking about what you're bringing up. It's not related to that item on our agenda right now.
But I.
So we're going to be moving.
I think it's apparent that
Excuse me.
people can be sued and then they change their minds.
Mr. Brusco, again, you shall follow the order of this meeting, which you are currently not.
I'm sorry. but I
Now,
have.
if you would like us-
I know, I have nothing to say. I have nothing more to say. I'm out of here.
We're happy to talk to you about this.
Oh, no, no.
Okay,
I've said enough.
okay. All right,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
sure.
Yeah, I'd like
Any
to
of the-
know what
Any of the issues that he raised, did it have anything to do with ADUs?
No.
Thank you.
yeah,
Right.
off the agenda. Off the
Thank you.
agenda.
Absolutely
that's-
nothing.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. With
I would actually like to discuss that at a
Yes,
I'll bring that up later in this meeting.
yes,
Okay.
and when we get to the like any business
Okay,
that we
thank you.
Are we turning
unanticipated
to a regularly
business, that's when I
scheduled
plan
agenda
to actually
Okay.
address him in,
Okay, let's carry
during
on
that.
then.
Yep. So does anyone have any feelings then on what we should do moving forward? Janelle, do you have any extra insights, and if you've talked about
I
this?
do have a couple of questions about how the 80 or the accessory apartment edits stand now, and if we would want to change some things before possibly doing a public hearing for it. One was at the last meeting, we talked about trying to ensure that new construction was ADA accessible, or had like the fix-ins for like bars installed in the shower and whatnot. And I don't think as it stands, the bylaw right now has that. So I'm wondering if that's something that we would want to.
So basically a condition in there that requires that accessory dwelling units essentially use, I think it's called universal accessibility or universal design principles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that's the term that basically talks about minimum door widths, 0-step thresholds, things like that.
Yep.
Wherever possible, right?
So doing something like that, I think that's not necessarily what the building code requires, and it might be a little bit more costly to do those changes, but I'm wondering if that's something that we want to include.
Yeah, because the concept is to have folks age in place, or the idea that it's not, I guess, are you seeing it as an option for folks to age in place, or a supplemental income thing?
Both.
Or both,
Mhm.
right? And so depending on how you approach it, I think will determine how we
That
feel
might
about
be
that.
their argument with building too. You know what I mean? That might be
Well, I mean, will
sphere
the
to decide whether that's enforced. Their tax incentives to build that. You know,
Methods and
do we need
materials.
to get involved in it?
Yeah, methods and materials is building code.
Yeah, and we're pushing residential, right? We don't want to make it onerously extra
Right.
expensive. This might be something better handled. I'm just floating.
Yep. No,
It might be Kyle's tent.
if it comes to like
Yeah, I would
doing a
certainly talk to Kyle.
special permit criteria, there could be something in the special, if a special permit is required, like on a non-conforming lot or something like that, where we could list that, a proposal to do a universal accessibility
Yeah.
is
a
deemed an
special-
advantage
yeah,
to
in
the
a special
town,
case,
and
case
is
by case.
favorable. But yeah,
I mean, is there language we could say, like, we recommend that, so it's not,
That's not a bylaw.
yeah, that's
Right.
design
Just some,
guidelines.
That's
some
right.
language on the side.
But I think what you just said, Doug, maybe saying plans that show universal accessibility would be an advantage to an application. I think that's,
Would be deemed, advantageous to the town. Yeah.
okay, cool.
But only as criteria for the special permit.
Right, because then somebody's going to come back and say, look, I've got the ramp in here. I've got it all right. You can't deny because this is supposed to advantage me,
Mhm.
right? If
Well,
it doesn't
yeah,
help to add it,
yeah.
then don't add it.
If they're trying to drop a
Um,
900 square foot ADU on a 6,000 square foot lot and pointing at,
Yeah.
rails in the shower as a reason why it should,
Quality
well, no,
rails,
it's a
yeah.
lot bigger than
Right,
that.
right. You could create confusion just with a recommendation.
Okay.
The other question that I had, and I know we ran into an issue about this when thinking about the permit for the new hotel and like residency requirements of how many, like how long someone can stay or whatnot. And in the bylaw right now, it says I think it says the intention of this bylaw is not to provide like short-term rentals.
Mhm.
But something that I was thinking about is if we're trying to make this for a lot of people, but then especially for people who are trying to age in place in town, they could possibly already be snowbirds going south in the winter and then coming back here, but maybe they would like to downsize to a detached ADU rather than the large home that they're in now and stay in Hatfield. And like, do we want to comment on that? Even if we did, I don't know how, like, what our ability to enforce something like that is, but just something.
Does the current bylaw define short-term?
We don't touch it, I don't think, at all.
We don't, and it's not a definition in our, I think that's a definition in our zoning bylaw either.
It hasn't become an issue yet in Hatfield, but it's something that, like, to Jimmy's point, I think there's like 2 or 3 Airbnbs in town. Like, it's
Yep.
not like it's a hop-in thing. It's something I don't think we have to address right now, but like, it's something that we should definitely keep on our radar, unless others feel strongly otherwise.
I think we need to keep it on our radar. I think we need to keep it on our radar. The Airbnb routine is very appealing to older people that have the space or the ability to have something built there and have a little bit of supplemental income, especially for retired people.
Right, and the whole thing though is like, the idea is that it's supposed to alleviate the housing crisis,
Right.
but Airbnb is actually kind of can exacerbate the housing crisis. It makes it worse.
Maybe. I don't agree because my kids want my house and they want to move me into the apartment.
Right, so that's the point, right.
That's the part
That's-
that's very advantageous.
The ADU part is,
Yeah.
that's the positive, right? But the whole thing is if someone sees this ADU and is like, oh, I'm now going to throw this out so I can Airbnb it, it's not, the point is to allow more people in town
Age
to
in
live.
place, yeah.
age
And at the same time, it's, if it's the individual who owns and lives in the principal house,
Mhm.
and they're the ones Airbnb-ing the accessory dwelling unit, the circumstances may exist that they're doing it in order to be able to afford
Correct.
to stay in the main
Right.
house, and therefore it's still supporting a residential use.
Right.
That's the thin excuse.
Mhm.
I tend to lean towards a rental that is measured in days and not months as being a commercial use,
Yeah.
not a residential use. That's kind of my
Mhm.
benchmark. But if there is no definition like that in the zoning bylaw, I'm not sure now's the time to try to force
Yeah, the
one.
wording could be really difficult.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And like I said, like I feel comfortable not addressing the short-term
Yeah.
rental thing now, and
Okay.
that we can keep, although as many times as I say we should be more proactive than reactive in this instance, I feel like we could just keep an eye on it. The only negative about not addressing it now is that if we don't address it now and it becomes a thing, then there's this cohort of people in town who are really pro Airbnb, and then they come and get upset if we were to roll back allowances of short-term rentals. But
The average
With not
Airbnb,
having a crystal ball, but
Yeah, you don't
Right.
need to make it a problem. It's not a problem.
yeah,
But you can almost guess that
that it could.
people are going
The
to try
average-
to monetize.
average Airbnb rental is 3 days.
Mhm.
And more than that, the average is really weekends, 2 days.
right, but the whole thing is like that could be a space that's housing someone more permanently, or like they're renting it long term, and then they're sending their kids to school here, and that's the whole
Right.
point. That's like the driver of,
Which is our push.
which is, yeah. I mean,
I will say that as far as Airbnbs go, you would not want to pay a long-term rental fee based on the Airbnb daily fee.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Again, that goes
Yeah,
by
that's,
to
that's
why
gonna that's gonna eliminate somebody wanting to rent an Airbnb for 6 months at basically, say, a cheap one, $150 or $200 a
right, and
day.
Jimmy, that goes back to the reason why we would look at not allowing or restricting short-term rentals like that,
Mhm.
because you want people to be living more long-term in
Right.
this places, and it might not be as monetarily advantage. Wow, it might not be as advantageous
Advantageous. There you go.
monetarily, wow, to the homeowner. Maybe or they make more money off here. Maybe they don't want to have a permanent person living.
Right, we
But
didn't.
as a board, I feel like we would want that.
So it sounds like we're comfortable with keeping, the language right now is, this bylaw is not intended to support, encourage, nor allow the short-term rental of accessory dwelling units. So it seems like we're comfortable with.
That's all it says.
Yeah, it stays out of it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Makes the point without being restrictive.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then until the town is ready to define
Mhm.
short-term rentals as a commercial use, and as long as the planning board is addressing uses of land, then we're not there yet.
So we're going to sit with this one like it
Um,
sits right now.
Yes, so at least of that language.
Mhm.
Yeah, Janelle?
I had one more question, and that was, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. We have, a maximum for livable floor area for the ADU, and we have a lot size requirement for the ADU.
I believe
And I'm
so.
wondering if we
Yeah.
want to prevent tiny homes rather than ADUs, if we are interested in including a minimum as well. Like
So,
Yeah.
so a tiny home can come in two flavors. It can either be a very small structure, say 300 or 400 square feet, in which case a building permit is acquired and it's constructed according to building code and so on and so forth, and then a final CO is issued at the end. Or a tiny home comes in the form of a trailer. And I believe that a trailer cannot be used as a dwelling.
Correct.
Not here.
Not here, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that you can't get a CO for a trailer.
There's a lot of like the septic issues and water issues.
Well, even beside that, it's not a permanent
Permanent.
dwelling. It's
Mhm.
they're not meant to be permanent dwellings. If someone wants to build an ADU and they think they can get away with 370 square feet, I personally don't see a problem with that, provided it gets a building permit and provided it gets a
Right.
certificate of occupancy
Right.
and
We
is
allow it,
safe.
But you still got to go through building. You
Oh,
still
yeah, of
gotta
course.
Prove that it's safe. right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah, so what did
So-
you mean by a tiny home then, Janelle, in that regard?
that was what I was worried about. So that sounds all good to me. I just wanted to
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
make sure that wasn't possible.
Yeah, the permanency of the structure.
And those are all my questions. So
So I have a question. Do we have any numbers on the percentage of square feet an ADU can be compared to the main structure?
Oh, that's a good question.
What?
That's a good question. I mean, somebody could go put a
Just wondering.
mansion, say, behind the,
Right.
as an
Right.
ADU,
No,
Right.
it's no, it's limited to
No,
900
it's
square
limited
feet.
to
behind the
900 square
normal house, behind the primary. What's that? I'm sorry,
It's
go.
limited to 900 square feet,
900 square feet.
which is what our current bylaw is for
Right.
the attached. So
Um,
it's just taking the attached, right, and making it detached? Is that where,
That's essentially the
what
idea.
you went?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the meat of it, right?
The question is raised, if someone has a piece of land with a small home on it of less than 900 square feet, can they build now a full house as a second dwelling and convert their existing home to an ADU?
I don't think so, because in I think how the edits were created says that it should be clear that the ADU is a secondary structure compared to the home. So I think if we got plans.
So this came up. This came up with Dr. What's his face, who's
Mhm.
building Dr. What's his
It's
name?
something different. It's not related to
No,
that.
well,
Different
he, let me get this straight. He had to decommission the house that sits on Elm Street so that he didn't have two houses on his one building
Right,
lot.
you're not allowed to have two dwellings on one property,
Right.
but in this case, this is what allow an ADU,
Right.
which means it has to fit under the parameters of the 900 square feet, blah, blah, blah. So it wouldn't be it would have two separate dwellings, but the second dwelling would have to fall under the parameters outlined in the bylaw.
Yeah, he had
Not be
the-
a completely separate house.
He had to decommission that house, Mrs. Parada's house.
Are we taking a moment to look?
I'm quickly checking the language just to
That's
see if it's
as you're
addressed.
doing that. So I'm assuming if we're going ahead and thinking about these, agreeing on these tweaks or the language, that we would maybe want to try and move ahead with something at town meeting. We didn't really even.
Well, I mean,
the
all
original-
right, my question would be, with all the tweaks and finagling we have, is this going to become complicated to the point where we can't push it quickly?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm not averse to
I
this.
think what we did, we just went over pretty simple stuff, and we were pretty. There wasn't much argumentation on it. It was like, let's clarify.
Let's
this.
get it clear. Okay.
And I think that doesn't change the fact that everybody was super positive on this, even before the discussion of these minor edits were started.
Okay. And
I
if it's
don't think
doable, then
if
let's
this
do it.
changed anything. I mean, the way I see it in the overarching discussion. This
Okay.
is just clarifying something.
Right, and we have the funds to post for it and do it. So
We should do it.
It's a good try. Now's the time.
yeah, Janelle.
I just want to add, so in C section G, we say ADU shall be subordinate to a single family dwelling in location, massing, and appearance.
What was the second word? Location, what?
Massing.
Massing, size. So there's your size right there.
Mhm.
So,
You
so
can't
they-
make a bigger
yeah,
house.
Yeah. There you go.
It's already covered.
Okay.
This is like deja vu 2019 town meeting all over again, where we passed the original ADU, attached ADU, and we tried to pass the open space development bylaw, but it got pulled last minute because of legal things. Anyway.
Okay. Cool.
Cool. So did that address all your questions, Janelle? All right.
Does anyone else have questions?
Because if not, we will move to then, we don't need to move motion or anything, but we will work on getting a public hearing notice and stuff together. Not Ashton, but probably Karen, for our April 3rd meeting to have that hearing. So be prepared for a nice meeting length that time.
Oh, yeah, that should be good.
Any more discussion on this? Otherwise, we'll be working on the hearing working towards the hearing to then pass town meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you again, Doug, for picking
No,
up
that's
the
fine.
mantle on this particular bylaw.
Sure.
All right. Unless I hear otherwise, we can move on to the next agenda item.
So before we move on, I have one question.
Actually,
Go ahead, Janelle.
sorry, were you gonna, I was just gonna add, something we could think about too, if we're worried about, because if we go forward with this, it is gonna be very tight now. So possibly, like, we would have enough time to do this earlier at a special meeting if we were worried about addressing comments that were raised in a public hearing before putting it to town meeting. And I don't know what people's schedules are, but that's something that we could talk about, of just doing a special meeting for that.
If necessary, after April 3rd.
I would say like if necessary after, right, I agree.
Yeah,
Like
let's take it up then.
we can, if there's a bunch of
If
public
it turns
comment,
into a,
we can have a
pitchforks
meeting
and
like the
torches
next
and-
week or
Right.
something like that, to work through stuff. As opposed to having a special hearing and then no one shows
Yeah.
up at it or
Right.
something, and then we
Going in for
didn't need, yeah. Does that work, Janelle, with the timeline?
Yep.
Okay.
I will triple check with Marlene this Friday, but I think that we can make it work. When I talked to her last week, there was a way to do this. So.
Great.
What's the filing deadline for warrant articles? You know?
For warrant articles, because it's like within the town, we have a little bit more flexibility because town council has already been looking over things. So we don't have to, like, we can.
It's like
submit it
mid to
the
late
select
April.
board as a courtesy if we'd like, but we don't have to do that. So really, it's just a matter of getting it. It has to submit, or it has to finish its 20-day appeal period before May 14th, right, is our town meeting,
Mhm.
right? Okay. And then I graduate on the 17th. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So my question was
Yeah, so
about
what is 20 days before
access-
the 14th?
accessory apartments.
End of April,
Uh,
April 25th.
the apartment at my house is 1,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Is that now not going to be legal?
No, because it's not. an
No, not my
accessory
house per
dwelling
se.
unit.
No, I'm talking about new ones.
Um,
We're limited to 900
yeah.
square feet? Okay.
There's a provision in the language to allow a slightly oversized unit by special permit.
Okay.
So if you meet all other criteria and you still think, and you want 1,000 square feet,
Mhm.
then you come to the planning board and
Right.
you justify it.
Right.
So fair
Okay.
enough.
Mhm.
Right. I just didn't want anybody to be in our particular situation that we were in when we put this apartment up. It was for my mother-in-law and quadriplegic brother-in-law, which is why it ended up going to Stavros
Right.
over Stanley.
And so, and the other thing I think it's important to note that you bring that up is it doesn't mean that anyone who currently has something that's 1,000 square feet is now, oh no, not allowed.
Right.
No, it's a
Pre-existing.
pre-existing,
Forward facing.
grandfathered kind of
Yep.
situation. It's anything going forward, right? All right. Moving along to our next agenda item, which is the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission Master Plan recommendation discussion that you had at the last meeting. We had Patty Gambarini, who presented, was one of the presenters, send a memo along that I forwarded to all of you earlier this month, but it's here in your packets as well. Based on our, blessing approval tonight, they'll go ahead and use the allocated hours as listed in this table. Essentially, for the public, essentially the PVPC for the Comprehensive Planning Committee has approximately 125 hours of their planning expertise to go towards certain pieces in our comprehensive plan. And they met with us last meeting to talk about how the board would, and other committee folks represented from different committees would like them to allocate some of these remaining hours. So Patty did a summary back to us in this document, and it's up to us to kind of approve those hours. Does anyone have any comments on it? I have one, but
My only comment is on the back of the page where they're allocating 40 hours for flood resilience, basically to provide a track changes document of the existing floodplain bylaw so that it meets the new requirements, and the track changes document for the stormwater management. Basically, it looks like that's to create a general bylaw regarding stormwater management. Those numbers seem really, really high. It's one person working a good solid full week. And maybe it's necessary if they're including significant legal review and review with state agencies and that sort of thing.
yeah, with the flood resilient, that's a good point. They're also recommending things that are beyond the minimum, which makes me think that it's more than just a track change document, or distinguishing which ones are beyond the minimum. But yeah, I agree with that.
I don't have a problem with the specific tasks.
Right.
It just seems like the hours seemed higher.
And is there hours that you would want to see allocated to something else? Because then
That's a great
that's,
question.
if I
Well,
were to
this
reach
is a
out-
total allocation of what we have to pay for. We have money to pay for?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how they figured this at least. Okay.
Which, we should be doing our due diligence and questioning
30.
it a little bit. But
80, 88, 128, 133, 138 hours.
and they said they have about 125. I will say the last item on the table summarizing the differences between Whately's ag zoning. I'm aware of what Patty's talking about here, and I don't think it's necessary to put any hours towards that because I can tell you right now what it is. So basically,
Okay, good.
yeah. So basically, Whately's ag zoning, they have everything that's zoned agricultural. The frontage of that ag zone is ag zone 1, and it's like up to 400 feet of the front. It's the frontage, and then at 400 feet
of
back.
depth. Okay.
And so you can do more stuff and develop more things on that 400 feet in the frontage, and that's ag zone 1. Ag zone 2 is like right behind it. So basically they allow for certain types of development on the front portion, the frontage portion of the agriculturally zoned land, but not as much and on the whole parcel.
So you're talking about somebody owns 60 acres of a field and they've got frontage and they want to put a house on the road edge, but maintain the rest of the area as agricultural.
Right, it's encouraging development
Yeah.
closer to the road instead
Yeah.
of plopped in the middle of the field, for
Yeah.
example.
Okay. Fair enough. We should be able to adopt that. kind of-
Right, so that's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
to me, that seems like one of the other recommendations of the comprehensive plan in general is like relooking and retooling all of our zoning maps, like looking at the zoning map as a whole
Mhm.
and like relook,
Mhm.
which is going to be another project
Huge,
where we're going to have
huge.
to like
Sure.
get grant funding, use, people to recommend that. And this seems like a potential solution during that process. I don't think it needs to be its own special thing that we work on now. So that's why
Okay.
I don't recommend
I'll
that.
go with that one.
I, yeah. The stormwater management and the flood resilience, looking again at that, I would say that keeping hours in there makes sense because they're talking about creating a new section of creating new language, but then making sure that it doesn't conflict with anything in the rest of the bylaw. So it's more than just creating new language and polishing it. It's creating the new language and then reviewing the entire bylaw to see if it conforms. So,
Mhm. So you think those hours are
well,
more in line then?
50 seems to strike me as high, but
Mhm.
it looks like they've got extra hours so to burn. So I wish they could spend a little bit more time on the technical memo. The first item on the first page and the top item on the second page. A technical memo doesn't really do anything. It's something nice, we read it and it goes into a file and that's the end. It'd be nice to actually have this structure for a program that could then be considered by the CPA committee.
So you're saying a memo with then like steps on what to do?
Yeah. A draft proposal.
Yeah,
Sure.
right now it's word, prepare a memo on how to set up, right? So it's kind of like create a checklist for us, create a numbered list, numbered order.
Yeah, plus a draft
Prepare a
proposal.
technical memo on how the town could use.
How they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could always ask if they can provide more than that, but provide like language that we could then use to bring to a CPA fund or bring to creating the okay.
Just ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice
Yeah,
to
tie it down to more of a deliverable.
I'm also surprised that it only will take 10 hours to identify for the second item on the table, a 40R smart growth and a 40Y starter home zoning district, only because like it's easy as someone who isn't a part of town to look at a map and be like, it makes sense to put something here, but then to not understand like maybe the politics of putting something there.
The ownership, the history, the neighborhood.
Correct. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a little more stakeholder engagement that needs to
40Y.
happen.
Yeah.
So I'll make that note, Patty. Unless, if you agree with that.
And those two concepts are, and maybe Janelle or someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, but 40R and 40Y are brand new. They're
To the town or to,
to zoning in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Yeah. I mean,
new, yeah, relatively new.
well, I suppose. Yeah.
Like there's like 60 towns, I think, that have passed
They're
it, have adopted it.
Okay. Are they requirements for the MBTA?
Right, that's the brand new thing.
That's the brand new thing, and I think they may be requirements for the MBTA.
For the
districts.
MBTA districts,
Yeah.
yeah.
So of course 60 towns are adopting it. Yeah. Yeah.
There are, I was looking at the map. There's like 4 or 5 in Western Mass.
Okay.
Not a ton. A lot of it is in
Yeah.
other parts of the state. Any other comments on this? Otherwise,
Seems relatively reasonable.
I like everything. I like everything we discussed. You gotta get down to the nitty gritty of budgeting these hours.
yeah.
And everything you've recommended is good.
All right, cool. The only other thing too is the other grayed out one about subdivision regulations about road width. I mean, like other parts of me want to say like, what else do they recommend we update to our subdivision regulations? Not related necessarily to stormwater management, but just in general. But that's a bigger project. Anyway. because that's something we've kind of toyed around with
Mm.
as a board here. But
Wider roads and wider right-of-ways being required in subdivisions were a tool that were implemented to actually discourage subdivision.
right, to make them more expensive.
I'm not saying that's good or bad. But that's the underlying question is, are subdivisions a good way to create additional zoning or additional housing opportunities? Is it the right tool to use?
Right, and by reducing the road width, for example,
Right.
that would make it more attractive to do a traditional subdivision when we're talking about wanting to make it less attractive, especially with us updating our open space development bylaw. So
Yeah. And if you're talking about the cluster type subdivision as being the preferred method, maybe that's where you look at reducing road widths.
Mm-hmm. Another carrot.
Another carrot.
right.
Yeah. So just a thought.
And I think cluster subdivisions are somehow going to have to be part of our future in this town if we want to increase our housing in any way possible. I mean, and I don't mean to attack Billy Skrupski at all, but his one gigantic house on that big farm kind of is what we don't necessarily want all of our open land to be.
Right, and that's, that's,
And that's not criticism of him. He
no, and
bought
anyone
this-
has every right to do that. And so that's the
Absolutely.
reason, like, how can we carrot?
Right. We want to carry it a little bit more.
Future development.
Right. All right, and then that's also having someone in like Janelle's position to approach parcels, landowners who are having parcels on the market like that. Because
Right.
that house, that particular parcel was on the market for a while. And if we had conversations as a town saying this is what we're interested in, maybe we could have partnered with
Right.
finding the right type of developer to do what we want. And that's part of the reason of having an assistant town planner is being more proactive in this and having a town person behind it instead of, just.
We kind of don't need one house on 7 acres. I mean, lots of people have the right to do that, and I'm not denying and not even insinuating that they shouldn't have the right to do that. But in the
Thinking
town,
as a board.
as a board and in the town's best interest, 7 acres for one house is not what we really need in this town when we're so deficient on affordable housing. I mean, it doesn't exist basically.
Any other comments on this? Otherwise, I'll get this back to Patty and her and her team can get working on it.
Sounds good.
I'm good.
All right. I'm going to make a note though to her too, just about like around the subdivision, the just saying, and also the conversation we just had around.
Sure.
Not discouraging its use, but trying to encourage the open space development bylaw one. So, all right. Next is updates from Janelle, if there's anything else besides what we talked about. I feel like everything we talked about tonight might be related to your updates. Oh, you're okay.
I'm thinking now here could be a good time to maybe talk about Article 16. for a
Oh,
second.
the unanticipated business that popped up and interrupted our meeting earlier, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that I can take this time to talk about that.
Yeah, do you want to just give like a
So-
very brief history, I think, for Doug in particular, since he wasn't here last year, and then for the public in general as well, just what happened?
Yes, so the planning board had 3 warrant articles that went to town meeting last year, 15, 16, and 17. 2 of them we did not take a stance on. We presented them at town meeting, and 16 was one of those. What I think
They all had to do with rezoning parcels
Okay.
of our map, or zoning map.
yeah. And what I think Mr. Brusco might not understand yet is that 15 and 17 were passed and they did not have a problem because the applicants presented a map at town meeting. It's unfortunate that Mr. Brusco didn't know that that was something that he had to do. And although it would have been nice if one of us caught it and had told him of that. That didn't happen. That being said, the other applicants did do that, and so they did not have the same issues. So as it stands right now,
And that's all coming
the
from the
Attorney
Attorney General's office, right? Correct. Sorry.
sorry, what?
It is all coming, and this is all like the Attorney General said that that didn't pass muster.
So did Article,
Ex-
sorry, go ahead, Janelle, I'm sorry.
So just one more point. So the Attorney General has approved Article 16. The article was approved, but because there was no map presented at the meeting, Article 16 will not have lawful effect until it is presented again at town meeting with a map so that the map can correctly reflect the changes. So it's really not in the town's best interest, I don't think, right now, either, like how it's happened, because now we have to have an asterisk on our map that says this zone is like giving a backstory of what has happened on this parcel. So it's frustrating. Now what I would have to ask about, and I don't know if the board can talk about this while I'm getting an update, but is if we're now going to push to have this accessory apartment bylaw updated at town meeting, and we're going to do a public hearing for that. I don't know if you can combine like 2 public hearings on one ad. I've never done that before. I don't know if that's possible.
Yes.
Because I think part of the problem is Mr. Briscoe does not feel that he should pay for the ad when he did it last year. Our town council has said that it is the applicant's burden to pay for the ad. He has to start from the beginning of the process again to go through the public hearing. I don't know if that would even be an option. There's been past
I'm sorry.
contact with him to talk about what could happen, and originally I had sent out mail. I did not do return receipt, but I sent out mail saying that the deadline would be, I think I said February 21st. I think that was the deadline to send out abutter notifications to start the public hearing up again for tonight. But that offer was not taken up, so here we are. So that's the abridged version of.
And did
how
we,
got here.
if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like we did pay for those hearing notices last year when people wanted to change their parcels, or am I incorrect in this? I'm assuming that, because we were the ones that were bringing the.
I wasn't here for that yet. I'd be shocked though if we paid for that, because that I don't know why the town would pay for the rezoning of people's private property.
Because the concept is that it would be like we are the ones that think it's the good idea to bring to town meeting. So I don't know. We can double check that. And
I think so actually, and I don't think that the town paid for it, because part of Mr. Briscoe's frustrations is that he already spent
paid.
quite
Gotcha.
a bit of money on this, because with the mailings and the ads, it adds up very quickly. Because
can you
really
cover just the number of times that you reached out to him to let him know that this was, I'm just want to make sure, it sounds like we did our due diligence here in trying to get his attention to you reached out before about, like, can you clarify when you reached out to him initially about this?
Yeah, so he came into town hall in early December, and then I sent the first letter in early January, and then I sent another letter in early February, and then he came in again in late February.
After the deadline, or
called,
okay.
Called or came in. I have not met him yet in person.
And the contention was around the fact he doesn't want to pay for this. Has prevented any of this from moving forward on his end?
I can't speak for him, but I believe that's part of the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to say personally that, like, I was all for trying to get this expedited for him. I feel that, that maybe the ball was dropped a little bit here. Certainly not completely, not the complete onus on us for him to get his zoning done. So I think he squandered an opportunity with the board tonight, personally, because I was sympathetic to his cause.
Before
And-
tonight.
Well, no, I'm still sympathetic to
okay.
the idea of
Right.
that zoning there. I've
Right.
always been for that.
Uh-huh.
His approach,
Is a little abrasive.
I tried when he came before the board prior, if he had come with the information that I was trying to glean from him at meeting, I would have given him a positive recommendation to the town too. I mean, there's only so far we can bend over to someone, and coming to a board and making accusations and yelling at the board gets nothing done.
No.
It doesn't change my opinion on the fact that that piece of property should be zoned the way the town voted it to be zoned. I'm sorry that that happened, but this is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Can I ask some?
I think for now, maybe we should leave it at that for now, as for this being updates. I don't know if we
Yes, yeah.
should get it and
Right. I
get
mean,
into it much further.
I think the ball's in his
Um,
court on this at this point, and as for my opinion.
But that, I just wanted to give an update on where that is. And then I can, I'll say that I'll talk to Marlene about this too on Friday and brainstorm if this is something that's even possible to still do, if we're gonna do a public hearing for the accessory dwelling apartment or accessory apartments. That's gonna be changed to accessory dwellings. So hopefully that
Have
gives
a
people
final
little bit more
comment?
information on.
I think Doug has one more question.
One thought. First of all, a couple of thoughts. First, an advertisement for a public hearing where multiple zoning bylaw changes are going to be considered can definitely be done as a single parcel. We just did one for Edgartown that had 10 separate zoning bylaw changes listed as part of one ad. So there's that.
Okay, awesome.
As you know, all the requirements of making sure that the average person understands the scope of what's being proposed, so the language has to be clean and clear, but there's that. But I have to ask a clarifying question. Article 15 proposed to change zoning on a parcel. It included a map and was approved. Article 17 proposed to change zoning on a parcel. It included a map and was approved. Article 16 was a proposal to change zoning on a parcel, did not include a map, but was approved by a vote of town meeting. The Attorney General kicked it back and said, in order to solidify this, you need to have a map voted on by town meeting.
Correct.
Yes, and so the Attorney General has approved it, but it will not, they're saying it will not have lawful effect until a map is voted on at town meeting.
By
So that's-
town meeting.
Yep.
Yep.
And so we've contacted to try to get this, to have a conversation about what we want to do about this with the landowner and Yeah.
Does a map exist?
It's, all it has to be is just like a basic map, the assessor's map highlighted, like, it's really a shame because it is such an easy thing. So I understand his frustrations.
To be blunt, I don't see why we don't proceed. But I'll leave it at that.
Well, I think it would be a matter of who's going to publish the.
who's going to pay for
That's the sticking point.
the public hearing.
Understood. Well, that's the other question. Was it a citizen's petition initially?
Yes.
Never mind.
Yeah, it's
He's
I mean,
responsible.
it's a unique piece of property. I think it's 400 feet. That's backed by 91, and it's cornered with 5 and 10 and Chestnut
track.
Street
Yep.
and train tracks. I mean, rural residential is a tough sell for that one.
No, I get it.
And anyway, I've already stated my opinion on that.
All right. So
John, you
question
have a
from the
comment?
audience.
What were the 3 parcel addresses in particular?
Articles 15 and 17, do you remember?
It's Church Avenue, right?
Yes, one was Church Avenue,
And then Omastas was the other one, right?
and then the public hearing that we had tonight was those parcels that we opened tonight.
Spot zoning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other thing else from you, Janelle?
Yes, one other update. Thinking about possibly someone using the home occupation bylaw. We
Mhm.
weren't able to get that on tonight's agenda, but that's still ongoing. With maybe a antique business somewhere on West Street. So Steph, I think maybe I might tap you on the shoulder later this month to do just a preliminary meeting because it might be helpful to walk this prospective applicant through the bylaws before having them come to the meeting.
For sure.
And yeah, but I think that would be exciting to do.
Yeah, and that hasn't been something that's been brought before while I've been on the board, and I think it's a very underutilized bylaw, and I feel like there's a lot of gray area businesses that could be on the books legitimately and can like promote themselves legitimately if they did utilize this. So I'm excited to have this be a good test case for us related to that. So thank you, Janelle. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we can move to minutes approval. Looking at the February 7 minutes. Was there approval of the January minutes? I do not believe there was. There was?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Any comments for those who are here to comment on the meeting minutes from February 7th?
I think we had that what you mentioned.
You got some edits.
Tom Rady.
I got some edits. Tom Reedy, first line of attendees, R-E-I-D-Y.
R-E-I-D-Y.
Jeff McCullough mentioned twice, M, big C, U-L-L-O-U-G-H. He's mentioned at top in the first paragraph, public hearing. Then we got Janelle Franklin's name spelled wrong, number 3 under board discussion. And the next page, Patty Gambarini is Gambarini, spelled wrong twice. With those edits, I'm ready to approve. And move so.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes from February 7th meeting are approved.
With amendments.
Our next scheduled meeting, as mentioned multiple times in this meeting, is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Anything else tonight? Otherwise, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:08.
Thank you.